person? Yeah. It came over here. Because mom was raised so much worse. And she was so fun. The idea of coming in. Next week, probably come to school before people probably get this kind of big giant festival. Yeah. So I kind of warned him. I said, tonight will be quiet, it'll be a small game. We deliberately did not put in that we were coming. So as to kind of keep it small. Exactly. So this is just a chance for us to come. They're not coming. But there's Mom. I think my aunt related stuff. You guys are all stars. Because she literally tunes in every she's my dad's says, oh, I didn't even. Yeah. She came up. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure she did. Because you guys are all celebrities. Yeah, you guys are all like television celebrities. She watches you every week from Chicago, and she was like, no, you guys are great. She was very excited. Sorry. Little dog. Like, star. Yeah. So yeah, she's coming. I think her sons are coming in. Her cousins in Chicago. I'm super close with. I think they don't like her to come. Maybe away. Anyway. There she is. Oh, okay.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Glenn. We're going to gather together. Welcome to those of you who are usually with us online but are with us in person. We're very happy you're here. To people who have been away, to people we saw last week, we're glad that all of you are here with us.
We're going to start near the end of our Siddur on page 343. It starts with a nigun, so there are no words, so I'll expect everyone to sing along. The words are Or Zarua Latzadik Uliyishrei Lev Simcha. 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 Or Zarua Latzadik Uliyishrei Lev Simcha.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm from Miami, and for a Miami girl, this is very cold weather. And it also, as we're getting closer and closer to the winter solstice, right? Yes. It is getting darker and darker outside. And I just noticed that our bodies tend to slow down a little bit. There's this impulse within us to just want to slow down. And there are these words from the author Catherine May. She writes this beautiful book called Wintering. And I thought they might help guide us in this process that we're feeling internally and might invite us this Shabbat to participate in it. She writes, plants and animals don't fight the winter. They don't pretend it's not happening and attempt to carry on living the same lives that they lived in the summer. They prepare. They adapt. They perform extraordinary acts of metamorphosis to get through. Wintering is a time of withdrawing from the world, maximizing scant resources, carrying out acts of brutal efficiency and vanishing from sight. But that's where the transformation occurs. It's a time for reflection and recuperation, for slow replenishment, for putting your house in order. Doing these deeply unfashionable things, slowing down, letting your spare time expand, getting enough sleep, resting, is a radical act now, but it is essential. May this Shabbat invite all of us into the replenishing, into the rejuvenating, the recuperating that our ancestors imagined, so that, especially in these dark times, we can face and be ready for the work ahead. And we'll do that with loving words to guide us. We're on page 10, Yedid Nefesh.
Yedi nefesh, Havarachaman, Havarachaman. Mishoch avdecha, El ritzonecha, El ritzonecha. Yedi nefesh, Havarachaman, Havarachaman. Yeshoch avdecha, El ritzonecha, El ritzonecha. Yarutz avdecha, Ishtachave el mul adarecha. Yedi nefesh, Havarachaman, Havarachaman. Mishoch avdecha, El ritzonecha, El ritzonecha.
We'll continue on page 20 with Lecha Dodi, imagining two beloveds coming together in celebration. We come together in community on this Shabbat as we ready ourselves for this Shabbat. We'll do verses 1 and 2 on page 20 and 5 and 9 on 21.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala yarada 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 pnei Shabbat lekavela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yarada 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 pnei Shabbat lekavela. Shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad Ishmi'anu el hamiuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad L'shem u'tiferet ve'litchila Lecha Dodi likrat kala yarada 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 pnei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yarada 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 pnei Shabbat nekavela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Mekor ha'beracha merosh mikethem nesucha sof ma'aseh v'machshavat tchila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yarala 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 pnei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yarala 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 pnei Shabbat nekavela.
Top of 21.
Hitoreri, hitoreri, ki va'orech kumi ohori. Uri, uri, shir daveri, kvod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yarala 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 pnei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yarala 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 pnei Shabbat nekavela.
We rise and face the entrance bottom of 21.
Roi v'shalom atzeret bala gam b'simcha u'b'tzola toch emunei am segula boi chala boi chala. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yarada 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 pnei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yarada yarada pnei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yarada 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 pnei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yarada 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 pnei Shabbat nekavela.
We continue standing. We are on page 28 for our call to worship the Baruch Hu.
Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Lai 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 lai
We are on the bottom of page 31. This is an hour of change. Within it, we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. And together on the top of 33. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol meodecha. Ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha. Veshinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvelechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isha'arecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Emet. Emet ve'emunah, we recite right after the Ve'ahavta, which can be found on page 38. It refers to the fact that there is truth in our world and there needs to be truth in our world. And today's truth, one of the many, is that many of us may be feeling restless given the nature of what's going on in the world, the state of the world, the state of our ancestral homeland, of what it means to be Jewish right now in America, and really what it means to be a human right now on this world. Contemporary Jewish poet and former law professor at Penn State, Ellen Danon, who died this past month, she shares wisdom about how we can find strength and courage amidst feeling restless or not knowing what to do. Dannon was an active member of the Jewish community across the country and a Jewish poet and scholar, and in her memory, we'll learn from her words in her poem, Fear and Overcoming. In the beginning, God gave us breath and courage to begin life anew. Where does our strength come from? What gives us chazak va'amatz, strength and courage? God works miracles with an outstretched hand, but with the Egyptian army in pursuit, Moses takes a breath, holds out his arm over the sea, and a strong east wind blows all night and turns the sea to dry ground. In the dark, we wait for deliverance, for Mitzrayim, from the narrow place, before we enter the promised land. God's Spirit through the night brings peace and rest and courage to walk into the sea on dry land through the roiling wall of waters on each side. We face the fears that challenge us. We give breath to calm the fear that enwraps us. We draw strength from each other. We cheer one another on. And we sing. Mi Chamocha can be found on page 40, and we'll join together. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha neder ba'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע הים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלינו ואמרו, זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך
We turn to our blue supplements for our nighttime prayer, Hashkivenu, especially when we feel the darkness the most, when we feel the uncertainty. This prayer is a vision of God just wrapping a shelter of peace. And we can each imagine what that source of safety is for us, whether it's family, whether it's a particular place or doing a certain thing. We can just imagine, where is it that we may feel most safe and loved, and to bring that sense of wholeness as we join together in these words.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, leshalom, vehamidenu malkeinu lechayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen.
On page 46, we'll prepare for the Amidah. This is meant to be our conversation with God. And in my experience as grown-ups, we're not always so open to having conversations with God. And I sat this morning with my daughter at her school Shabbat service. And the rabbi asked, when we got to this prayer, what's the conversation that you need to have with God? And these little 5 and 6-year-olds talked about how there was a certain gift that they really wanted, that they would like God to procure for them. But they also talked about how when they really need something, that they reach out to God. They talked about when they're feeling lonely or sad, that they have conversations with God. And so I wonder if we can take a cue from our wise 5 and 6-year-olds and maybe just be more open to whatever we believe is bigger than us. What is it that we want to say, and what is it that we might need to hear? We'll join together on page 46 and invite you to please rise.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
48.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzhak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, Vekone Hakol, Vizocher Haste Avot Ve'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Humoshiach Humagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Va'ezrat Sarah.
Page 50.
Ata gibor le'olam Adonai, Mehayeh kol ata, Rav lehoshia, Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem, Mechalkel hayim bechesed, Mehayeh hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim ve'rofei cholim, Umatir hasurim, Umekayem emunato lishene afar, Umichamocha ba'al gevurot, Umido melach, Melech memit umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata lachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol.
52.
Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom, Yehalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el hakadosh.
We'll continue in silence through page 62. Maybe this is your opportunity for your conversation with God. Maybe just some space for your own quiet prayer, and you can be seated whenever you are ready.
We're at the bottom of page 62. Familiar words, a new melody. Fairly easy to pick up on. I'll invite us to listen first, and feel free to sing along as soon as we get it. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. One more time. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. This is different. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. May the one who brings peace bring peace upon us and to all of Israel and to all of humanity. And we'll all say together, Amen.
Jacob is a character who struggles. Even in the womb, the Torah describes him as pressing against his twin brother. He later struggles with his brother for his birthright and the blessing. And then, after fleeing his brother's wrath, Jacob struggles with his uncle Laban. Now, on his journey home in preparation for his first encounter with Esau in over 20 years, Jacob struggles again. But this time, it's a different kind of struggle. Rather than engage in another external battle, Jacob finally faces the struggle that he's been avoiding all along, a struggle with himself. As the Torah portion opens, Jacob receives word that his estranged brother Esau is marching towards him with 400 men. Jacob, understandably, is terrified as he imagines the worst for this reunion. he divides and prepares his camp for this encounter before departing on his own. And it's alone that Jacob, without protection of his family or without his belongings, makes a camp for overnight when a mysterious Ish, this being, appears and wrestles with him, famously until dawn. After being wounded, Jacob demands a blessing and is then renamed Yisrael, as the text states, "For you have striven with beings divine and human and have prevailed." So who or what are these beings divine or human that Jacob is wrestling with? Well, some medieval commentators suggest that the Ish is an angel who assumes the form of a human in order to prevent Jacob from fleeing this encounter with his brother. Others explain that it's a celestial representative of Esau himself. Yet others argue that the Ish is in fact Jacob, that he has reached a point where he's not even sure who he is anymore, and so he's struggling with himself. Rabbi Adina Allen of the Jewish Studio Project offers that in this light we can understand the mysterious figure with whom Jacob wrestles as representing the disowned, unacknowledged elements within that he finally brings to consciousness. Jacob emerges from his dark night of the soul, humbled, hobbling, and blessedly transformed. When dawn breaks and he and Esau finally meet, there's no hostility, there's no violence. Instead, in an act of tender intimacy and relief, the brothers embrace and together they weep. The Ish then represents the parts of Jacob that he, and really probably all of us, would rather ignore. It's the internal guide prompting him to face the struggles inside himself that he's been running from for so long. The struggles that many of us know pretty well. For we all have those messy parts of ourselves that we would like to set aside. Those traits, those conflicts, those responses that don't represent the best of us. And yet, it's exactly those qualities that sneak into so many of our external challenges and relationships. And amidst this time of fear and anguish in our world and in the Jewish community, we must take the time to allow ourselves to struggle with that Ish in us, to wrestle with the fullness of our heartbreak by setting aside the space to fully acknowledge our fears and to face the hard questions and the difficult truths that are laid before us. Jacob finds this space alone, separated from the noise around him so that he might really listen to the voice inside him. This kind of wrestling, unfortunately, doesn't happen on social media. It doesn't happen in sparring matches with others. It happens through the questioning and the listening within ourselves. This certainly doesn't mean that we should remain inward forever. But like Jacob, we may continue to have struggle after struggle with ourselves because we haven't really allowed the struggle within ourselves that we need. Many of you have shared the visceral fear, the confusion of not knowing what to believe, the feeling of being caught or limited by a false binary of evil and good, of being pitted against one another based on a very narrow litmus test, of being isolated by others in your communities, for some of you in your families, of simply not knowing how to hold the enormity of the loss. As Rabbi Chasen taught us last week, we all yearn to be in a place of knowing. It's so much neater and so much easier there. And yet perhaps Jacob can teach us that the inner struggle and uncertainty is actually where wisdom resides. As Rabbi Allen suggests, perhaps if we are tenacious enough to stay with the struggle long enough, we, like Jacob, will discover the blessing it contains. At the end of the Parsha, Jacob and Esau come together, and the text is really honest about it. They don't continue their journey together. They don't forge a new relationship, but they do embrace and they do acknowledge one another. It feels too distant and too painful to imagine such a future right now. In the Middle East, and frankly, in many corners of our country and our world. But I'd like to think that one day, two peoples who suffer as targets of each other and as targets of the world can find a way, like Jacob and Esau, to both exist. Rabbi David Kimchi offers that they, the Ish and Jacob, struggled until the dawn as a hint that light comes after the darkness. In this week that is filled with glimmers of light and still vast layers of darkness, may we be brave enough to grapple with our own inner struggle so that we may emerge anew at daybreak. Shabbat shalom. One of the ways that we engage in that inner struggle is by also acknowledging the external suffering that exists all around us. And before we prepare to offer our Mishaberach, our prayer for healing for our community, for ourselves, for this world, I want to share with you a communal prayer as we think of those who were freed from captivity and as we continue to think of all of those who remain hostage. Achenu kol beit Yisrael, for all our family of the house of Israel, fellow Jews who face anguish and captivity, whether on sea or on land, may the divine have compassion upon them and bring them from distress to relief, now, speedily, soon. And together we say, Amen. As we prepare for Mishaberach, I'll invite you to rise if you feel comfortable to share the name aloud of someone that you are thinking of. It could be someone in need of healing of the body, someone in need of healing of the mind or of the spirit, so that as a community, we can show up for them and we can show up for you in offering them a prayer of healing. We join together in words of healing, Mishaberach, on the middle of page 253.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body with renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We join together in Aleinu. We are on page 282. I'll invite you, if you're able, to please rise.
Sam chelkeinu kahem vegoralenu kechol hamonam va'anachnu korim umishtahavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Page 287. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz. Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad. Ushemo echad. Ushemo echad, Ushemo echad.
Words to prepare us for Mourner's Kaddish on page 288. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love does not die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. As we prepare to recite Kaddish this Shabbat, we especially remember our congregation's past president, Sandy Bothman, husband of Annette Bothman, and Lynette Chasen, wife of Sherwin Chasen, mother of LBT Senior Rabbi Ken Chasen and Jeff Chasen, mother-in-law to Jamie and Allison, and grandmother of Julia, Scott, Zoe, Micah Ben, and Eliana, whom death has taken from us recently. We link their names with Gerald Blanton, Jesco Chermak, Ben L. Cohen, Robert L. Colgrove, Ida Evans, Belvie Firstman, Ava Goldman, Ava Greenberg, James Henderson, David Eli Holmby, Alan Holtzman, Violet Kahn, Beverly Karp, Delpha Lynx, Marshall Lichtman, John Lodge, Lewis Miller, Vivian Robbins, Eleanor Rosen, Marvin Rosenberg, Esther Ross, Sydney Smith, Elsa Stern, Matt Taylor, David Vermouth, Sydney J. Weissman, MD, and Mel Rubel. There are other names that we should add. I'll invite you to say them at this time. We also think of all of those who have died as innocent victims of violence here in our people's ancient home and all corners of this world. We'll join together in Mourner's Kaddish on page 294, and I'll invite you, if you're able, to please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'amad yivrach v'yirteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayachon uvyomechon uvchayeh dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudasha berechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Ta'amiran be'ama v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen.
Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Israel. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. V'imru. Amen.
Amen. Zichronam livracha. May their memory truly be a blessing.
Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel ve'imru imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel. Ya'aseh shalom shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. And just a reminder, Hanukkah Shabbat, next Friday night, you get the Shabbat light and you get all of the light from Hanukkah with all the Chanukiot out. So bring your menorah and please make sure to join us. Shabbat shalom.